Hey everybody, Patton here, welcome back to the channel. So the list of games on the Sega Genesis Mini has been finalized, and what we thought we were getting with 40, we're actually getting a couple extras. So we're going to talk about that now, and as you can see, I'm taking this way casual. I'm not setting up all my stuff. I just want to talk to you guys about this stuff because I'm sure you've already read everything about these games. So this is just going to be a small reveal for maybe those who haven't heard yet, and then we're going to talk about the games. And we're going to talk about the system altogether. And I'm going to be checking information on my phone, so if you see me reading from my phone, it's just so I can get you the information because I don't use scripts on my channel. I just do it as it is. Alright, so the final 12 games Sega announced on last Tuesday, 6/4/2019, on their live stream on their own channel, which was really cool. I love how Sega's going about this and releasing things via a live stream. I think that's great. So, last 12 games, the 10 official games they released. The first one is Road Rash 2. The second one is a sequel. If you never played it before, it's like a car combat game. It's except not in the vein of Twisted Metal or anything like that. You're on a road and you're trying to win the race, and you can attack the other bikers with chains and like billy clubs and things like that to try and knock them off their bike to gain the advantage. Fun game. I never played the older ones. I played the 3D ones on like N64 or PlayStation. So I know some people were requesting that in the game. So there you go, Road Rash. You got Virtua Fighter 2, which is a 2D fighting game. The regular Virtua Fighter 2 was in the arcades and I think the Saturn, and it was in 3D. So I didn't play much of this 2D one. I haven't heard good things about it, so we'll see. I guess we'll see when the Mini comes out. Alicia Dragoon. This is a rare side-scroller that I don't think a lot of people have played. I've never played it. I've seen the Pat the NES Punk video on it, as many people have. But it seems neat. I don't think you attack in the game. If I read it correctly, I'd have to look it up again. But you just walk and you have this type of attack that will get all the enemies at once. And it's like a hybrid side-scroller shoot-'em-up thing. But you're not flying around, you're just walking. And you have familiars that follow you around. You can level them up. So it seems like a pretty interesting game. Columns, everybody knows Columns, the puzzle game. It's not match 3. I don't know what else to talk about it. Dynamite Headdy. This one I figured would be on the console along with Rystar. We did not get Rystar, but we got Dynamite Headdy, which is great because when I was younger and I would go through my gaming magazines, this is a game that only came out on the Genesis that I wanted. I had a Super Nintendo growing up, and this was the game I couldn't play because they never released it on the Super Nintendo. So of all the games I've wanted, this is probably it right here, Dynamite Headdy. I can't believe they put it on there. I'm so happy for that. Then we have the Genesis version of Strider, ported from the arcade version. It's another side-scroller, and the big thing with Strider was, it's futuristic. You have some animal pickup things that you can get that'll attack the other enemies, but your sword, it like cuts through anything like butter. All the enemies go down in one swipe except for like the bosses, things like that. And it goes and does a couple of different things. Like I remember a stage, at least in the arcade, where there was this orb in the middle you had to take care of, and this whole time gravity was wonky, and you had to spin around the orb while attacking it. So I had a lot of fun with Strider. I think this is a good game. Kid Chameleon, I think I called this one too. This was a game that I played on a store display in Target forever ago. I think I might have mentioned that on the channel as well. Kid Chameleon's cool because you collect these hats, masks, helmets, something like that. You can collect a lot of them. I think there's like over 10 in the whole game, and then that changes your character into something else with different abilities and strengths and weaknesses. So it's something we see a lot today. Like for instance, the newest Mario Odyssey. It's kind of like that, where depending on what hat he's wearing, or maybe not Odyssey, maybe more the Galaxy games where you change your hats. Kid Chameleon was one of the first games to do that and do it really well. So I'm happy that game is on there. I do have some good memories of playing that. Light Crusader. I don't know much about this game. A long time ago, I had made a list of Genesis games I never got to play. That was on there. I think it's a action RPG, isometric view, something like that. I thought it was an earlier Genesis game, but I guess the release date is kind of later in its life. But it looks neat. I don't have much to say about it except that I was interested maybe 5-6 years ago when I made that list and playing it. So that's cool. Eternal Champions, another fighting game. So that brings us up to 3, I think, with Street Fighter, Eternal Champions, and Virtua Fighter 2. Yeah, so we got another fighting game on there, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on this one because as a fighting game, you want 6 buttons on your controller, and as we know, Sega did not give us the 6-button controller. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And the last game, which I've never heard of at all, Monster World 4. This looked really cool. Never heard about it, never seen anything until this live stream. And it's a side-scroller, but I can't explain it. The mechanics look so solid, and it looks like you have this little creature with you, and you can use it to like glide or double jump. I don't know what I can compare it to, but it looks really good. I would suggest, after watching this, go find another video on Monster World 4 for the Genesis, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It looks kind of cutesy. The box art is really cool looking. Yeah, like a kind of claymation thing going on. But I think this is going to be fun. This was the surprise for me in the whole collection, this Monster World 4. I'm happy they included that because it looks like it's something I would play. I would definitely go through this whole thing. And the 2 bonus titles that came out of nowhere, Sega did a good job keeping this under wraps. We have 2. They're very well-known games. The first one is Tetris. It's classic Tetris. Everybody loves Tetris for the most part. I don't care because I played it so much, but a lot of people like it. And now you have it on the Genesis for the first time. I believe this was never released. At least that's what it looked like they were saying on the live stream, because they said the release date was 9/19/2019. The second bonus title is the shooter Darius, which is huge. That's a very popular game. Again, never released for Genesis. I don't know if this was a prototype that never came out. I think they're kind of going the route that the Super Nintendo Mini did with Star Fox 2, which I 100% appreciate. I love it when these companies are releasing games that we never got to see. And now, it's been so much time later, they're like, why not? We're just putting out this little console. It's not like they're looking to change the industry or anything like that. They just want to have fun and give the gamers something that they like, or at least that they think they would like. And I appreciate it. I never got into the Darius series all that much, but I do like shooters. I was always more of a Gradius kind of guy. I knew it as the fish shoot 'em up. And it looks, like I said, it looks solid, and it's something I could get into. So I appreciate these 2 added titles. Tetris, I probably won't play all that much, but Darius, I'll go for it. So this final 10 games list, pros and cons. Let's look at the cons. Virtua Fighter 2, this probably isn't the best version to play, but if it's all you have, then okay. Again, I wasn't a big fan of Virtua Fighter to begin with. I was a Tekken guy. So I never cared too much about Virtua Fighter. I did play a lot of 2 on the Saturn, though, with my friend. It's decent, but I don't think this version is the most well-received. So there's a con. Of the other games, I don't see anything. I mean, Columns is, if you like Columns, you like it. If you don't, then you don't. Let's talk about the Eternal Champions thing. When Street Fighter was announced, people's biggest complaints were the controller not having 6 buttons. You need 6 buttons for fighting games. Hitting start to change from punches to kicks or however you do it doesn't work. I mean, obviously, people probably won't be playing this competitively. At least I don't think so when you have so many other options out there. Maybe they will. I don't know. But you need a 6-button controller if you want to really get the most out of these games. Eternal Champions and Street Fighter 2 are big. They really need those extra buttons to enjoy the game to its fullest extent. Sega did not offer that, but there is an alternative, which I found out right after I finished making my other video. So there's a company called Retrobit, which made an officially licensed Sega 6-button controller for the Genesis, and it's compatible with the Genesis Mini and some other things. Let me look it up real quick. All right, so this is a USB controller. If you ever wanted a USB Genesis controller, this is the one to get. Like I said, it's officially licensed. It's compatible with the Sega Genesis Mini, PC, Mac, Steam, RetroPie, Raspberry Pi. That's from their Amazon listing. You have the classic 6-button layout with a repositioned mode button. Not sure what that's about. And they added an L and R shoulder button. So it's not authentic to the original 6-button because I don't remember shoulder buttons on that one. So they added 2 more buttons for extra configuration options. And then you can toggle between D input and X input. So what was the good thing about this controller that I thought was really good? I think it's the length of the cord. The cord, I think, is 10 feet long, which is awesome. Yeah, 10 feet long. 8 buttons altogether, compatible with a bunch of things. So here's my opinion on this controller. As the controller itself, it's only $20. That's a good buy. Now, Nintendo, when they released their extra first-party controllers, they were only $10. So this is twice as much, but you can use these controllers on a lot more. Your PC, like I said, Raspberry Pi, it works for all those systems. It will probably work for the Odroid if you hook it up to it as well. So if you're the type of person that wants this controller, by all means, it's only $20. It comes in different colors. I think it's got the classic black and then like a see-through blue looking color. So that's neat looking. It does look nice. It's a good looking controller. I'll put a picture up somewhere, probably up here because I got more space up there. They also have one for the Sega Saturn as well. I mean, it's a Saturn style, which I think would be the same because the only difference between the Saturn and the 6-button Genesis were the L and R buttons, right? Or were there more? I don't remember. I don't remember the Sega controller very well at all. So I don't know what the difference is. But they also make one under the Sega Saturn name. I don't know what you would use that for. I guess emulation on your PC or something. Because there is no Saturn Mini or anything like that. So people were making a big deal about this controller. But in my opinion, it's a non-issue. 42 games. 2 games you really want this controller for. And actually, I looked it up. Let me find it again. Hold on. I looked up how many games need the 6-button controller. And what I found was no games on the Genesis need the 6-button controller, but some function a lot better with the 6-button controller. So I found a list of all games where you can use the 6-button controller. As you can probably assume, almost all of these are fighting games. You know, you got Balls, Clay Fighter, Dragon Ball Z, Fatal Fury 2. Almost over 90% of this list are fighting games. So the games on the system that you can utilize a 6-button controller. We have Comic Zone, which I didn't know. That's one of my favorite games on the system. I assume it's for your inventory. It kind of makes inventory management a little bit better. So you don't have to cycle through the items. You can just hit the button and it lets you play. So Comic Zone, you can use a 6-button controller. Contra, again, but on this list it says limited functionality. I don't know what that means. It's probably the same thing, cycling through your weapons or something. Eternal Champions, Street Fighter 2. Everything else is a fighting game, Lost Vikings, you know, but those are the only ones on the system that utilize it. So it's 1, 2, 4 games. Comic Zone, Contra, Street Fighter, Eternal Champions. So less than a tenth of the games utilize at all the 6-button controller. Is it worth $20 to get that experience with only 4 games? In my opinion, no. I don't think you need to spend the extra money if you're going to be playing these games. And again, in my opinion, I'm not buying this for the fighting games. I have them on other systems, not Eternal Champions, but I can play Street Fighter on I don't know how many things. So the argument that you need an extra controller to really enjoy it, I'm not personally going to be playing Street Fighter on this. I'll probably give Eternal Champions a shot, but the way I play fighting games anyway, I don't do it competitively. You know, my fighting game my experience with fighting games is jump kicks, special moves, and sweeps. That's how I play fighting games. I spam special moves, I'll jump kick at you, and I'll try and trip you up. And that's it. That's all fighting games. I don't try and learn the combos, well, except for Killer Instinct, but that was based around combos. You know, I don't learn the hitboxes. I don't try and learn the like the frames, the frame animations, like how long it takes someone to execute this move. I don't go into all that. I just like to play the fighting games for fun. I actually enjoy fighting games just as much playing one player through the story mode as I do competitively with another person. So this 6-button controller, I think people are making a bigger deal about than it is. Again, my opinion, not a huge fighting game enthusiast as much as some people are. And you can get by with the other games listed with the 3-button controller just fine. So if you do want the 6-button controller, you are interested in what Retrobit put out, I'll put a link in the description. You can take a look at it. Also, I forgot, on this list apparently Zombies Ate My Neighbors for the 6-button controller. And I don't care too much about that, but I didn't even think about putting Zombies on My Neighbors on the system. That would have been great on the system. I love that game on the Super Nintendo. I guess I could just play it on the Super Nintendo, but that would have been a good one to put on here. I could replace a couple games on the system with Zombies Ate My Neighbors. That's an excellent co-op game. I want to play that soon. So overall, this system is still turning out really good. They're giving you 2 controllers. This games list. Now, sometimes when these systems comes out, there's a lot of filler. And if you've looked at the Sega at-game stuff, holy, the filler on that thing. There's like half the games, I don't know about the newest one, are just like these garbage throwaway games that you'll maybe play once just to see how it is, and then you throw it away. You don't want anything to do with them because they're not games. They're added there to say that this comes with 80 games when really only 30 or 40 of those were actual Genesis games. So I like that Sega hasn't done that here, especially when it comes to the Sonic games. And I know people aren't going to agree with me on this. People want Sonic 3, they want Sonic and Knuckles, they want every Sonic game on here because of how the franchise was on this system, and it's a key, series, and it sold so many, and Sonic 3 is the best, and all this stuff. Well, there's 2 things. One is the whole legality part of it. Sonic 3 had music composed by Michael Jackson, and their estate is real weird on allowing rights or licensing on any of his work. And I don't think he was actually credited for it, but he did work on it. So there's a bunch of legal issues with Sonic 3. My personal opinion on why I don't care about Sonic 3, not because I don't care about the games. The games are fine. I actually like Sonic as a character. I like Sonic. I've made my opinion on the games known on the channel, that I don't think they're done the way that they should be done. If you're trying to go fast, let people go fast. You can't go fast if you got all this crap in the way. But my thing was, especially with the at-game system, that you had every Sonic game available, and it's not like the Mario games. Like, there's a huge difference between Mario 1 and the American Mario 2 and Mario 3 and Mario World. They've changed things up so much on those games where it's worth it to have each one. You can separate the games as their own type of game. I didn't feel that in the Sonic series. You're kind of stuck with the jump, the roll. I know they added the spin dash to the second one, but the overall gameplay experience was the same to me. You're doing the same thing. You could have added all the stages from Sonic 2 to Sonic 1, and I wouldn't have known any different. They added Tails, which kind of gives you that gliding mechanic, but I don't think they did enough change to this series. I thought they played it safe. They kept everything real similar because they knew what worked. And I don't knock them for that or anything. It's just business. So they knew what they had going. They knew they had a competitor to Mario, and they stuck with it, so they didn't make a lot of changes to the system. And yeah, there's the argument that the Mario 2 we got here wasn't even a Mario game, but Nintendo was smart enough to toss some Mario characters in there, and they made it a Mario game. I don't know. I don't care about Sonic 3 not being on the collection. I actually would rather not have the first Sonic the Hedgehog on the collection and only have 2. That seemed to be the most iconic one on the system, I think. For not being a huge Sega fan, it's hard for me to say what the best one was between 2 and 3, because I know a lot of people like 3, and that introduced Knuckles, who's really popular. But I think it's good that Sega didn't go crazy with the amount of games. I don't count Spinball because that's not a main series game. That's something completely different. That's more like on the Mario 2 level, where you could have changed that with any character and it would have been a pretty neat game. So let's look at the games as a totality. All the games included, all 42. I'll start with Road Rash, because for some reason on the Genesis Mini site, Road Rash doesn't have the box art. It's not anywhere on there. They only show 41 out of the 42 games. What's up with that? I don't know. So just hear this list of games and tell me where the filler's at. You have Echo the Dolphin, Castlevania Bloodline, Space Harrier 2, Shining Force, Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Toe Jam and Earl, Comic Zone, Sonic 1, Altered Beast, Gunstar Heroes, Mickey Mouse, Castle of Illusion, and World of Illusion. Maybe there a little bit. I'll maybe count that, but from the little bit I played of these 2 games, it seems like World made enough changes to differentiate itself from Castle. So maybe the 2 Mickey games, we could have done with 1 Mickey game and been alright. Probably World, that seemed a little more fleshed out. Thunder Force 3, Super Fantasy Zone, Shinobi 3, Streets of Rage 2, Earthworm Jim, I would have preferred 2, whatever. Sonic 2, Contra Hard Corps, Landstalker, Beyond Oasis, Ghouls and Ghosts, Alex Kidd. Maybe the weakest game on the system, but it was one of the first games. It came with some of the systems. Alex Kidd may be kind of weak. Golden Axe, Phantasy Star 4, Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, Mega Man The Wily Wars, Sonic Spinball, Vector Man, Wonder Boy and Monster World, Virtual Fighter 2, Alicia Dragoon, Columns, Dynamite Headdy, Strider, Kid Chameleon, Light Crusader, Monster World 4, Eternal Champions, plus Tetris and Darius. There's so many good games. All of these games, if you go back to like the Nintendo Classic, some people were like Ice Climbers. Really? You're gonna put Ice Climbers on here? For the Super Nintendo, I was kind of wondering why Kirby's Dream Course was on there. That was always in the back of my mind. Like, I didn't think it was a huge seller for the system, but they also didn't have any sports games on the Super Nintendo, so I kind of get that they were trying to do something sports related. Which brings me to my next point. The Genesis was known for its sports games, yet no sports games. And I'm sure it's another licensing thing from EA and, you know, the NFL or NHL. But again, I was never big into sports games to begin with, so it doesn't really bother me all that much that there's no sports games on here. I don't know which ones you would put on here anyway that weren't licensed by someone already. Maybe the Mutant League series? I don't know how that was. I know they had football and hockey. I've heard good things about them. I used to read reviews about them in magazines that it looked interesting. But when we're talking sports games on the Genesis, I'm pretty sure we're not talking about Mutant League. We're talking about the actual NHL 94 or any of the Maddens that came out. So some people don't like that there's no sports games on here. But again, that would probably cost a ton of money for what Sega's trying to do here. They're trying to make the best system, keep it at a decent price for everybody to, you know, pick up and play without keeping the cost so high. Licensing and getting rights to a name or to a certain game is probably one of the most expensive parts of making something like this. That's where you're spending most of your money. You can pick up a Genesis Mini and give it to anybody. I bet anybody watching this, if you were to give this system to somebody, there is a game on here they will like. You could probably cut the games in half and find a game that they will like. There's so much on this system. Sega has packed so much on this thing. It's insane. It may be the best mini system that is coming out or has come out. You know, you have the NES Classic, which was great. The controller length was probably its biggest hit. 30 games, nice. Super Nintendo came out, 21 games. They dropped the games list, fixed the controller issue. They put some solid games on there. The Neo Geo Mini, lots of games. I want to say it's close to 40 for the Neo Geo as well. But that price point, and to play it with a regular controller on your TV doubles the price almost. You could throw the Data East Classic in there too. You can't hook that up to the TV. You're stuck using the regular controllers. But it's got a lot of games on there. A lot of good Data East games, fun games. You're just stuck on this little arcade machine. And then the PlayStation Classic, who we all know just wanted to toss a mini system out to make some money, and they completely messed it up. The controllers are real nice for the price now. Okay, so for the price now, the PlayStation Classic, yeah, absolutely. Some people are finding it for less than $30. It's going for $40. Now with this price, absolutely. But it came out at $100. You know, the technical specs of it are better than a Raspberry Pi B3. You get two really solid controllers. That's probably the biggest sale, is the power of it and the two controllers that come with it. They are solid USB controllers, and they do work in the PC. I don't know why they were trying to say they don't work on anything but the PlayStation Classic, because they work fine for me, and they are authentic. They don't have the dual shocks that a lot of people wanted, but I'm okay with that. I have a PS3 controller that works just fine for anything I want to use a dual shock for. You know, 8BitDo tried to come out with their own receiver for it, but they didn't do a 100% good job on it. There was something about the mouse cursor. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Sega Genesis Mini. I think Sega has put the most heart into this system than anybody so far. In terms of presentation, polish that they've done with this system, because anybody can make this system, the physical system itself, look good. I mean, it's just plastic covering some electronics. Anybody can do that. People have been doing that for a while now with the 3D printers. So the hardware itself is whatever. Anybody can do that. You can toss a Pi in a Genesis shell, and there you go. You have a Genesis Mini that can play a lot more than what we're getting here. But what Sega has done, they put their heart into it, and you can tell by watching these live streams, even though they're in Japanese, I had no idea what they were saying. The presenters, They were excited about this system. They wanted this system to come out. They even mocked up. Oh, I forgot about this. They mocked up a Sega CD and 32X, and they made this tower thing, which they're actually selling in Japan. And these are fake, by the way. The mock-ups, you can't do anything with them. They're entirely cosmetic. You have the Sega CD with the Genesis on top, a 32X in it, and it looks like maybe a Game Shark or some kind of code thing. And then you can put a mini Sonic 3 cartridge on top of that, or a Sonic 2 cartridge, whatever. And it's cool. They call it like a Sega Tower or Sega Mini Tower. They're actually selling this in Japan for like $35, $36 for you to just have there for your system. So they went through all that trouble to make these add-ons that do nothing. They're just there to look nice. And that just shows that they really love and they put a lot of effort into this product they're putting out. We all know that Genesis or Sega hasn't been the best in terms of their hardware. Their software is awesome, and the people they assign to their software, M2's doing a really good job. But for their actual software, they've taken a lot of chances with the type of games they put out, and I really respect that they give these developers the creative atmosphere that they allow them to make the type of games. Like, think of Seaman on the Dreamcast. Would you see that on a Sony console? I don't think so. And most of their Saturn titles are just so different than what you normally get. It's, one of my favorite games of all time is on the Saturn, Dark Savior. I think it's a great game how they do parallel universes and time travel-ish kind of things. It's insane, and it keeps you stuck playing the game. Sega just didn't have it in the hardware department. Advertising, they were great, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. But their releases is part of why they went down in the hardware department. They wouldn't do their hardware releases at the right times. They were doing it at the end of life cycles to where a new one was coming out, like the 32X. Why would you get a 32X when the Saturn was right around the corner? There was no reason to release things the way they did, and it hurt them so bad. Ultimately, the Dreamcast couldn't compete with the PS2 at all, and that was a solid system too. It was just bad timing on Sega's part. And then you have all the Genesis add-ons, the Sega CD and the 32X, instead of making a completely new system, which what they were planning on doing. It feels like they knew that they had messed up, and well, at least with the tower thing, it seems like they're kind of poking fun at themselves, making this huge tower for like just this mini system that has nothing to do with it, but make it look nice or make it look cool. I guess cool to some people, I don't know. Not $36 cool in my opinion, but hey, some people like that stuff. But it seems like they wanted to do this one right, and that's why they delayed it. They didn't want to put it out with the PlayStation Classic. They looked at it and they were like, you know what? Let's take @games off. Let's put somebody on here who knows what they're doing with M2. Let's delay it. Who cares if we have to delay it another year? We want the games on here that we want. Let's ask the gamers what games they want, with polls on Twitter. What games do you want on the system? You can tell they wanted to make this good, and it looks like they're beating everybody else out with it. They have a ton of games on here, solid games. Like, this collection may be my favorite collection, and I'm not even a Sega person, but the collection here, the amount of games, the amount of good games on here is it'd be hard to argue taking anything off without putting some kind of personal bias on it. Like, I don't like puzzle games, so I could do without Columns and Tetris. I don't care. But with an unbiased viewpoint, I can't argue removing any of these games at all. Even if I don't like puzzle games, people like Columns, people like Tetris. People like Mean Bean Machine or Puyo Puyo, whatever it was called in Japan. People like these games. It's going to appeal to those people who like the puzzle games. We have the fighting games on here. Sega has impressed me so much with this thing, and for someone who didn't own one, I would trade mine with my best friend. He would take my Super Nintendo, I'd get his Genesis. I have no complaints. I'm not a Sega person, but Sega has really done it with this system. So I highly suggest anybody who's just a video game fan, not just Sega, Nintendo, Mini System, if you like video games and you like retro games, this is a must buy. Absolutely 100%. It is completely worth the $80, as is. You want that extra controller? Tack on $20 more for the extra 6-button controller. 42 games, $80, releases 9/19/19. I will have links in my description where you can order the Sega Genesis Mini and the Retrobit controller as well if you're interested in that. So thank you all for hanging out with me. I know this isn't how I normally do these kind of things, but I wanted to make this video different than just a reveal video. I just wanted to talk about my feelings on the system and how strongly I feel about it. So thank you all so much for sticking with me and watching the video, and I will see you next time.